Hi everyone, this is Striker and welcome to a very special episode number 14 of my Redout Advanced Strategy Guide. Joining me today is the man, the myth, the legend, holder of more world records than anyone across all of Redout, and voted by the Discord community as the consensus greatest player of all time. Please help me welcome Interfector. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much for that lovely intro. Very well, thanks.
Let's give everyone a little bit of a background on our battles in Underground Tour. I would say for the better part of a year. We have battled back and forth, improving our times, sharing strategies, and hiding secrets. But we're finally here today to divulge everything and compare two of the best Underground Tour times that have ever been run. Let's start by asking you this. What intrigues you particularly about Underground Tour as a track, and what technical challenges do you feel that it presents to the player?
Alright, so it's a very technical track, but it's a non-MS track, so that's what makes it very challenging for especially new players and like intermediate players. Because you need to know your counter strafes and everything, and those sharp turns very well, which is hard to execute perfectly. Very nice with non-MS ship, yeah. So yeah, and what I like about it, I remember like back in the day, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I was running this track. It was very difficult to get into the top 10. So I was trying different strategies, and I actually figured out this Odin-OT, because before this it was Odin AP, I think it was held by Zeph. So I took it by half a second, I think, with actually about 4/10 with Odin-OT, so that's why I like it. Very technical, twisty, and with Odin-OT turbo boosts line up really well, so it's very, very nice to run.
That's a very interesting point you bring up too about the Odin-OT. I had forgotten about that. What I guess you had found out was you could include more turbo boosts.
Yeah, definitely.
And this track, despite all of the curves and turns, it has some of those straightaways that give you that opportunity to gain more of that speed on a rapid basis.
Yeah, so before this, I think record was with Odin AP, and I tried it and I really didn't like how pattern felt on the track. So then I tried OET, and then it lined up really well. So yeah, it was much nicer, felt much nicer to run than Odin AP.
Yeah, something else I'll add too in terms of the technical challenge part of this. I feel that Underground Tour prioritizes wall bounces in a way that most other tracks don't, especially knowing that each specific turn requires a slightly different kind of bounce. And we'll go over that a little bit more as we get into the actual analysis, but that's just something for everyone to keep in mind there.
Yeah, it's very, very heavy on the bounces here.
Yeah. Now, we've gone back and forth with messages about this track over and over, and one thing that we've kind of felt to be a contrast between our styles is that I tend to be very analytical in my approach to observing laps, rewinding them in Canovia, and making mental checkpoints of how fast I'm going and my lap counter. You seem to be more of a feel player. Can you put that into words and describe what feel is to you and how you attain the flow state while you're playing time trials?
Well, it's just, it basically means just to run a lot of laps, and then with my experience, I've played a lot of Redout, so I kind of know like what feels the best, so what feels the best is usually the way to go. So yeah, that's basically what going by the feel is. What you're doing is really very analytical, and I mean, I definitely, when you started first I wasn't paying attention to, for example, my ship speed in Underground Tour on some parts, but you started mentioning, so I actually did implement that into my strategies. So I had a couple of spots where I checked my speed after we discussed for the first few times, right?
Oh.
So yeah, it's a combination of our strategies, I guess.
Yeah, very nice. So let's do this. Let's show everyone the 2 laps. So I will play my lap first. You can get an idea of what a sufficient lap looks like. And then we'll take a look at the world record. And let's see if you see any differences in the maintenance of speed and some of the technical turns. And then we'll come back and review the footage in Canovia. Okay everyone, so we are back, and while you cannot see it in this footage, just before we approach this jump before the starting line, there is a boost pad on the previous straightaway. I have felt that it's imperative that you hit that boost pad to carry your speed into the finish line. I'm sure you'd agree with that.
Definitely.
Now once we jump through here, we want to land and utilize the micro boosting to gain the speed coming into the starting grid.
Yes.
Now you had made an interesting point about my approach that you felt wasn't ideal. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. So if you can rewind a bit back during the jump, yeah. So what I noticed is that you use a lot of your normal boost in the air. So, and what I think is better actually is to just when you land, so you have your full energy bar. So when after you land, you do a lot of rapid micro boosts until the start-finish line, and then you can use your, I think it's about a third or a quarter of your boost gauge. Yeah? So as you can see, there is about 50 km/h difference, and also you don't have the full boost meter. Yeah. So I think that is because you used a lot of it in the air, and then you didn't have enough micro boost to like build up your speed enough until the start finish line. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. And 50 kilometers an hour, as we know, when you're looking at world records, that could be a big difference.
Yeah, definitely.
So the other thing I'm seeing here is a little bit of a difference in the angle of your ship in terms of where you are in the track, and then also the direction your ship is facing. So it seems like you're able to navigate this right-hand turn a little bit more cleanly here on the right, whereas me on the left, I'm turning more to make that possible.
Yeah, it's possible that I didn't really notice it also because we use, you and me actually use a different camera angle in Redout. You use the one that is closer to the ship and tilts with the ship. I use the one that's a bit further away and doesn't tilt with the ship. So also there's one difference. Maybe I had a bit of better line there, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I think we both agree now with this next wall bounce that as soon as we hit, we want to be turbo boosting.
Yeah.
Actually, it looks like, yeah, right as we hit, we both boosted, so we're pretty similar there.
Also, I can actually mention this. Like before, while I was still discovering the strategies on Underground Tour, I actually used to do this first turn without bouncing at all, like doing a bit cleaner. But after some more testing, it turns out that bouncing there is actually faster.
So on the right here, you would probably have been more to the right and then avoided the necessity to bounce in this corner, correct?
Yes, so that I had to steer much more and consequentially drop the speed. So.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about that in previous videos, the idea that oversteering is going to create a significant decrease in speed, whereas strafing, not so much. So if we can limit the steering, maintain the strafing, and utilize the walls to redirect velocity, then we can achieve a really high speed like we both have here. I would say this next section is just a little bit tricky as you're learning the track to make sure you don't either hit the left barrier here or the upcoming right barrier here. I feel like that's just a lot of trial and error.
It still happens to me to this day.
Yeah.
And not very often, but it happens definitely.
Now we both did something interesting. I wasn't sure that you had done this. We both implement a small micro boost as we're going through this straightaway. At least my rationale for it is that with an OET boost pattern, you have enough time to recharge the boost. So by the time we come around this hairpin, you're ready for your next turbo. So any small amount of micro boosting that you can provide while still staying within the turbo pattern is the way you want to approach it. So
yeah, so as long as your energy bar is full, you're basically losing time. So because you could have used that micro boost to build up your speed a bit more.
Yeah. Now, I think I can speak for most of the novice to intermediate players playing this track that this hairpin is a nightmare. Explain to me how to approach the hairpin. Do we use the brake? Do we just create a long drift? What is your approach here?
Basically, on this one, you have to do both. You have to use your counter strafe, so to engage the drift, and quite heavily actually. And then just before you're gonna hit the wall, you wanna tap the brake, so you get that better rotation and better wall bounce. Okay. Because you wanna rotate a bit more to the left before bounce, because otherwise you will get bad bounce, you will get stuck to the wall and have low speed.
Okay, yeah. If you see the wall itself, see how it slopes inwards if you look on the left? I mean, obviously it's the same wall, but that inward slope means that you can't really bounce and just escape. Like you said, you really have to swivel the ship so we don't get stuck.
Definitely.
In the days of the wall grind era, it would have been very acceptable to just scrape along the wall. But as you can see, especially on your video, it's no longer the case. You're on the wall, you're off the wall.
So you have to use everything you can to get that perfect, everything you know about heavy cornering. So heavy drift and bounce. You get nicely there.
Yeah. Now tell me if you agree with this. So in all of my runs on this track, I feel that the closer you can hug this apex while still maintaining some degree of forward velocity is the best approach to the turn.
Yes, I would agree with that.
Whereas something like Ghibli, the big left-hand turn on Ghibli, that's a little bit of a different angle because there's a wall bounce on the exit. But here, we're not looking to bounce into that right side wall, we're looking to come out at a straight angle. So if you think about just geometry and the amount of time that it takes you to make a curve, a smaller curve is going to go faster than a bigger curve.
Yeah, definitely. You want to hug that on the exit.
Yeah. And that's also going to lead to the way that we approach boosting out of this. Now, your boost seems to be a little bit earlier. Can you talk about that a little bit? Right on the right here?
Yeah, of course. Well, I found out that boosting there as early as possible is the best because you have very short straight ahead of you. So, I mean, it's better just to use that turbo as soon as possible because this is very short straight, and then if you prolong your turbo timing, you won't have you won't be able to benefit from that turbo for long. Yeah. So
Okay.
boosting early is the way to go.
Yeah. Now, one critique I have of your lap is this upcoming wall bounce. I would say neither one of us did it especially well, and I'll explain why. So, I've talked a little bit about what I call the speed method, or creating specific kilometers per hour checkpoints in my head of how fast I need to be going at a certain portion of the track. Once I come off of this wall, my speed right here has dropped to 939. If we go back to just after your contact to the wall, you're also going to be about 962, so yours was a little bit better. I have exited this bounce at 1,000 kilometers per hour and have been able to reach as high as about 1040 coming to this section here. See how your time or your speed is 1,006, probably a little bit higher, just before 1,011.
Yep.
So I've hit up to 1040-ish on this straightaway. I think that's something that you might be able to look at and improve upon.
I noticed also that wasn't particularly well executed bounce, because I also noticed about that the best case would be like just after bounce you want to have about 1,000 kilometers in the best case. But I would like to also mention, just if you can rewind a bit in that to this corner, the one that banks kind of downwards, just before, a few frames before.
This one?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Now this right pin. So what I usually do here, in order to prepare for this next bounce, I actually pitch down a bit and hug the apex very tight. So this kind of makes your ship align better for the next bounce without the use of steering too much. And that's one of my methods.
So you actually pitched down here?
Yeah, I pitch down just a bit, and I think that makes me align better for the next section of the track. So on the bounce and the next one.
Huh. See, that's something I've never even thought of on any track.
Because you see how like tracks goes downwards a bit. So yeah, I pitch down a bit, just a bit, just a tap.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Let me back this up. I want to bring us to the checkpoint coming out of here. I want to show you the difference. So take a look at where you are crossing through this checkpoint, and then I'm going to count the number of frames before I get there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 15 frames of difference in the first 11 seconds of this track. So 15 frames, each frame, as we know, is 0.0167 milliseconds. You can start to see how my time is slipping away. So my 43.147 lap, in my estimation of this track, was just about as perfect as it would get. And your time really shocked me to be that far ahead. So, as I talked about in my last video about comparing and contrasting times, this is the value of analysis, is you can really start to identify which parts of the track you're losing time in. So that's just a little bit of an aside. So make sure to check out the previous episode if you want more information on that. Now, this part here coming up, so we have a loop and then a number of right-hand turns. I'm going to play it in real time. I want you to talk about some of the ideas here.
Okay. So if you can just rewind back to just before the corner where the tube is. Okay. There. So so I found out actually this right-hander, because this bounce, this following bounce is really a nightmare, because you get it feels like RNG, and you can lose like 3/10 just because of that bounce. So what I found out is that you can it's actually better to miss the apex a bit, to go a bit wide. So you can set up for the bounce better, because I think that if you bounce a bit earlier, probably because of the angle of the track, you get the better bounce, like on average. Not guaranteed, but on average.
Okay.
You think I think that you maybe hug the apex a bit more, but also you got a pretty good bounce. So,
Yeah.
but from my experience, it seems like this is like the most consistent way to get a bounce right.
Okay. Yeah.
And also after, I didn't mention that after bounce, we both use our boost, our energy. What's left? Yeah. So the rest of our energy with small boost.
Yes. Okay.
These two next corners, I think. Okay. Before this one, we did it pretty similarly. I think we both hugged the apex very tight, and this one, I think I went. You went a bit wide on the final one, I think. Yep, there. Actually, no, the following one. Sorry. Here,
Right here,
I think
yeah.
that you
Okay.
intentionally missed the apex a bit, right?
Yeah.
I think I hugged it a bit more.
Definitely. You can see it right here on the right side of the screen.
Yeah.
And then contrast that here. See how? Yeah, you're right. I'm completely missing the black part of the track.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you did it intentionally. Maybe you think that you get better bounce like that. I'm not sure. But I felt that this is the fastest way, from my experience, the way I did it.
Okay. And this last one I found to be quite tricky. Coming just across to here, if you look on the left side of the screen.
Oh yeah.
Not only because the complexity of the turn with the drop, but the way it sets up the next straightaway coming forwards. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, it's also a terrible wall bounce. Like you get it wrong so many times.
Yeah, that's kind of what we talked about, as far as every wall is a little bit different. So that's why grinding is important. Just playing these tracks over and over and over. And I feel like if you don't, I mean, it's good to play a lot of different tracks and get decent, but to really understand the nuance of this game, it's important to pick 1 or 2 or 3 tracks and master them. And this was actually the first track that I ever got a world record on. So first-hand experience in terms of prioritizing one track, and then you gain skills that can help you elsewhere.
Yep. So why did you miss that apex a bit? Was it intentional or?
The apex here?
Yeah, that's the final. The one, yeah, just before that. Yeah, that one that we discussed previously.
Yeah, let me see. Not that one. It's this one coming up. Okay,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, I can tell you why. So what I felt like was if you wall bounce really early here, the downward slope of that wall kind of sets you up forwards a bit more. So see how I bounce, but the track still slopes down?
Mm-hmm.
I felt like that was providing me a little bit more of a rebound after crashing. I guess that's not the best strategy, but that's just something I felt. So that wasn't an intent on my part.
Okay, yeah. But I think after this point, our laps are pretty similar, so it's probably maybe it's even faster. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Now, here's where we come up on the most interesting part of this video. And for a long time, I was hiding what I called the underground secret from you. The secret will now be revealed. So, I want you to watch the video on the right to look at your method of going through this tube. So we carry a lot of speed, and you do a complete 360-degree loop. If we back this up and watch my side, I jump off the left side of the track, gain airtime, and then land on the left half pipe. Now, while I was experimenting with this track to try and beat you, I said to myself that the typical way I was approaching this corner of, if you look at the right side, of kind of just sloping the left side of the pipe and then salaming back to the middle was not giving me the speed that I needed to beat your time. Not even thinking about the concept of looping the track like you did, I was looking for some cheats, some ways to manipulate the physics of the game. And going back to my days of playing F-Zero, there's a technique called shift boosting, where you can kind of shift off the track, rebound onto the track, and gain speed. And since we know that falling creates acceleration in this game, I looked at the layout of the tube and said, if I can create a fall and a landing on a downward slope, I can build up a lot of speed. So that's what I did here. So if you watch my landing, so I'm in the air, right about here. You probably remember this infamous screenshot, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in the air. I am at 1240 kilometers per hour. Just prior to that, let me go back a little bit more. So watch how I'm at 1230. I hold in the air and I land and I'm still around that speed.
Interesting, yeah.
So did it accelerate me further? No, but it preserved my velocity. And what I feel that allows me to do is exit this track surface at a speed of around 1150 to 1160. That is very hard to come by doing it the traditional way. Your method is leaving you at 1144. So there's not that much of a difference.
It's a bit, I think, about 49 when we leave the track, but yeah, definitely yours is faster.
Let me see. So, okay, so it's still 11.
Try next frame. Yeah.
1146. Okay, so
Okay.
in my estimation, I thought this would have given me more of an advantage. But let's see how it carries the speed after the next pipe. So you landed, let's see right here. Yeah, so you're at 726 landing, and I was at 715. Okay. Oh, no, 738 at landing. Okay, so it gives me ostensibly 15 to 20 kilometers per hour. Not a huge difference given the risk involved in the pattern, but would this be a strategy you would try and incorporate in the future, or do you like the idea of what you're doing?
I can definitely see that yours is slightly faster. I mean, the numbers are just there, so you exit at higher speed, you land at higher speed. But honestly, I think it's a bit too risky, and it will ruin too many runs. So I think I'll stick with mine for now. But I can definitely appreciate your effort to find this. I would never have found this on my own because it's like too abstract for me.
Yeah.
But my method is definitely much simpler. All you have to do when you enter the tube, you have to pitch up, strafe left until you are straightened, and that's pretty much it. You cannot really ruin your lap there, unless you exit a bit on a weird angle, but that doesn't really happen.
Yeah, I can say that I don't try my idea in races online. I save it for time trials because it's a little bit risky. But if you want to learn it, what you want to do is try and exit the track just after these little caution markers. So right as you pass the caution marker, you drift with a strafe to the left. You're going to be exiting the track, but because of the upcoming half pipe here, you will catch and land once more. Now, I talked about with you in private messages that I felt that there was a more advanced version of this jump. I don't know if you remember that.
I think you mentioned it, yeah.
So I only landed it successfully one time, but I was able to land much further up the pipe. So instead of catching back on the track around here, I landed somewhere where my mouse is here up on the top left. And what happened was landing on the top of the half pipe basically gave me a huge amount of speed down the slope, and I was able to get to about almost 1,300 kilometers per hour.
Oh.
Which then carries you before that jump to a potential landing speed of 1750 or more right here. So the problem with that, of course, is it's probably a once in 100 kind of maneuver. So
yeah, definitely very risky.
Yeah. Now, one thing that I mentioned when we are leaving the tube section that I had found to be beneficial in gaining speed is to try and extend the amount of time through the straightaway that you're in the air. And what you'll see is that as soon as you hit the track, your vehicle will slow down, especially if you're falling through the air at a downward angle. So I know I had mentioned this to you in private messages. See how long I let that boost extend me over the straightaway, and I don't just tilt right down. So I think that helped you as well, correct?
Yeah, definitely. That was one of the strategies that I took from you. Just pitching up and then extending your landing as much as possible in order to preserve speed, because as you can see on our landing we have about 1700 plus kilometers per hour. But if you just if you don't pitch up, if you let your ship just drop, you will have much lower speed, and it can translate to like not over, but close to 2/10 difference, 1.5 maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now when we say pitch up, it's not an aggressive pitch up. What I recommend you do is feel out the angle where you want the ship to go. So if you see my mouse on the left, and then I'll go to yours on the right, just pick a spot and let the ship just drift to that spot. So we pick the angle, you land, and watch how cleanly we're able to carry 1700 kilometers per hour through. So I noticed in looking at this analysis before a little bit that once we get to this checkpoint here, so if you see on the left and you just passed it, from here on, my lap was actually about 5 frames faster than yours.
Nice.
So it shows the importance of learning how to turn wall balance and strafe properly. Because in 22 seconds, you have gained almost a half a second on me, which leads to your time just being remarkable, especially considering that it's not glitched.
Yeah, so usually a glitch is, what was it, 0.18 or something on this track?
I think it's closer to 0.17,
Okay.
1.167-ish, so that makes a difference. So the fact that you beat me by so much even without a glitch is pretty crazy. Now once we land and go into this final inverted loop and then left turn, do you have any thoughts on what you did here?
So yeah, this inverted loop is many laps die there actually. What you want to do is you want to stay as much to the right as possible, just as you are here. As you are preparing for this next left-hander, downwards left-hander. So you will go as much to the right as possible while keeping your ship slightly angled to the left, so that your following corner is perfect. You get nice bounce there and just barely clip the boost pads. So you see how close to the right I am?
Yeah.
You get there also a bit further down, but yeah. We definitely do not want to hit this apex closely. We want to go as wide as possible, because if you steer too much to the left, you'll just drop too much speed.
Got it. Yeah. That's a really nice tap. And look how, as soon as you get that hitbox for this boost pad, remember, resides a little bit outside of the actual animation. So we can tap, as you did here, and then notice how straight you're able to exit into that final jump. I did a very similar thing, but just not to the same level of efficiency. And
let's see, where did you hit it?
let me go back a little bit. Yeah, so
Oh,
I steered a little bit more to get there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe if you had started the inverted loop to the right, maybe it would have helped you to exit at a better angle, I'm not sure.
So a little bit more to the right here as we're starting.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Got it. Alright, and then finally, looking at this final jump here, I see that you land pretty far up on the track. Is that the best landing that you can achieve, or is there a better approach that you just didn't solidify in this lap?
No, from my experience, the best way to land is as far and as much to the right as possible. So on that jump, you wanna be pitching up, strafing right, and having your ship angle to the left. And you wanna land at the very far right point, just before the kill grid.
Okay.
So I think that's the fastest way. And when you land, you are angled nicely, so you don't have to steer much until the finish line. But I think you did that pretty similar. Let me see yours. Yeah, we did it pretty similar. But you maybe landed a bit earlier, I found.
Yeah. And that would have cost me a little bit of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Coming around this teleporter now, the difficulty here is that it obstructs the upcoming chicane. So once you cross, make sure you're not going to hit the wall, especially if you're running a good lap. And because of the angle and the way I was a little bit less than ideal in that finish, I did have a slight wall tap here. I don't think it cost me much time because it was so close to the finish line.
Yeah, probably not more than 100 or so. But also what I noticed is I had my turbo, my final turbo, I had it ready a bit earlier, which is, I think, better. And that all comes from that turbo, which is on that straight before the tube, I turboed there a few frames before you. The one before, there, if you can see. So if you can turbo here very early, you will have the final turbo ready also early, which is very important actually.
Okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. But also you will have a lower top speed actually on this straightaway, so that's a trade-off. It's very difficult to find the sweet spot.
True. But I can see it's pretty evident. So watch how on the right side that you're able to hit your turbo before leaving. Right there.
Yeah.
And watch how delayed I'm halfway towards the landing almost before I'm able to hit the turbo. So yeah, that's an interesting difference.
That is definitely a big difference in time there, I think.
Yeah. So let me do this. I'm going to run this in real time, real fast, give my quick thoughts, and then I'll play it again and have you just chime in with some of the things that you see. So regardless of these specific strategic differences between our runs, I want you to kind of observe how I steer more. And you're very straight with all of your angles. So your wall balances are cleaner. You're not overcorrecting as much. And in a game that's all about speed preservation, I believe that's the biggest factor that led to such a good time. More so than differences in loops versus jumps or in boost timing. I think a lot of it is just clean driving. So keep that in mind when you approach your own laps, to not get too aggressive with movement of the ship. Just try to drive in a straight line and relax. Okay, I'll hand it off to you. Give me your final thoughts.
Okay, let's go. So we want a rapid micro boost before start finish line, then turbo immediately after the bounce, small one tap of micro boost, and heavy drift and brake, and then hug apex tight here, turbo, pitch down there, and then make him miss apex a bit there. Tightly here, tight here again, and then very early turbo here. Pipe strategy of your choice. Before exit, pitch up a bit and then turbo. And then keep to the very right side here. And then miss apex here, clip the post pad barely, land as far as possible, and then just turbo to the end.
Okay, one more thing I want to do before we break for the day is give you a cool little feature from Kenovia that we can use to kind of monitor differences in strategy. So let's take a look at this checkpoint here. I'm going to put you just after the checkpoint. I'm going to bring myself a little bit forwards. So now I'm going to resynchronize the videos. And this is going to give us a cool idea of jump versus loop. Look at that. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah. Wait, we're actually the same. What?
Basically the same. I think I'm 1 frame ahead. Oh, no, not even. Yeah, basically the
Wow.
same. That's cool, right?
Yeah, but you have higher exit speed, so that will translate further on.
Yeah. So,
Very nice.
Inter, I want to thank you so much. This was a long time coming. It's good to be able to sit down and steal your strategy. Learn from your strategies.
Feel free to steal them.
And for all of you out there, this man is number 1. Listen to everything he says. And one day it might be you on the top of that leaderboard. All right, guys. This is Striker.
This is Inter.
Signing out.